guys, it's Dasha. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be going over how I rate and review books. I thought it would be a good idea to just have this video on my channel where I go through every single star rating and what it means to me and give some examples, as well as just talk about what I look for when I'm reviewing books or thinking about rating books. As I do consider myself a reviewer here on this channel, I think I really do focus on reviewing books rather than just talking about books generally. That's why I don't do any kind of unboxings or hauls even that often. I really do enjoy talking about books. As a reviewer, I think it'd be good for you guys to know what I look out for in books and why I rate books certain things. So obviously, since I read such a wide variety of books, I think it's important to first and foremost say that how I rate each genre and review each genre really varies. When it comes to novels, I really try to focus on things like characters and plot and pacing and logic. But for things like horror and thrillers, for example, tension and atmosphere are really important. So things like characters can even take a bit of a back seat because you're really trying to focus on building up this tension and this atmosphere and this kind of horrific feeling in the readers. So characters are maybe a little bit less important. Whereas in fantasy, obviously you want a good mix of everything. You want good characters and good plot, and you want the magic system, if there is any, to make logical sense, and you want the politics to be well formed and fully fleshed, and you want it all to kind of weave together seamlessly. But obviously, nonfiction is a completely different beast. So when it comes to reviewing and reading nonfiction, I tend to look out for things like the flow of information and of the points. I look out for how the points are articulated, if there's repetition or if there's something missing, or if the author didn't consider certain things. And I also look out for things like authorial tone, because that can kind of dictate how things are presented and how they're going to be construed by audiences. But obviously, enjoyment plays a huge role in everyone's rating process, and that includes mine. There's no way you can be completely 100% objective when you're reviewing and rating a book, because at the end of the day, no matter how good something can be, if you didn't connect with it, it won't have as much of an impact on you, and it's a lot harder for you to say, yes, I think everybody should go out there and read this immediately. I do try to be as objective as I can, as we'll see once we start getting into some of the categories, but at the end of the day, if I have a favorite and that is a book that has stuck with me, I'm gonna overlook a lot of things about it. And I also do kind of separate things in my mind by age category. So obviously, if I rate a book from the A Song of Ice and Fire series 4 stars, that does not mean it is the exact same 4 stars that I'm going to be giving a book from the Percy Jackson series, that I'm going to be giving to a nonfiction like Blitzed, that I'm going to be giving to a young adult book like Sorcery of Thorns. Each of these books and age categories are completely different, and they're built for different audiences, so I try to keep that in mind personally when I am reviewing things. So if you come onto my channel and you see that I have given Cinder by Marissa Meyer 3 stars, but also Jade City by Fonda Lee 3 stars, they're completely different. I'm trying to keep in mind when I rate them that I'm rating them according to their age category and genre, and I compare to similar things at the time. I compare them to how well they hold up within their own groups. I cannot compare them directly to each other because it's not the same thing. If you guys have been here for a little bit, you also know that I tend to use the Cawpile rating system to help me hone in on ratings when I'm not 100% sure. So if you're not familiar, G from Book Roast has created a system called Cawpile, which is characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and overall enjoyment. And what this basically does is average out all of these categories once you input your data, and it gives you a star rating at the end. And it kind of helps you hone in on a rating if you're not 100% sure. I use this a lot when I'm writing reviews or filming reviews because it helps me kind of structure my thoughts a little bit, but it's overall just a really good system to help you hone in on a rating. So I will absolutely link G's video down below along with her spreadsheet, and you guys can go and explore it for yourselves and see if that might help you in your ratings. I would even go as far as to say that within a 3-star rating, there's so much variety as to what that 3 stars might mean. But for the sake of trying to generalize, here are what every single star mean in my personal rating system. A 1-star book is terrible. There's no way around it. I only finished it out of hate or spite. I finished it because there was at least some kind of entertainment to be had out of hating it, but it was just a truly irredeemable book. For this, the only example I have is The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin. This is a young adult paranormal romance that I just thought was truly one of the worst books I've ever read in my life, if not the worst. I don't know how this was published. I am shocked that there is a whole series and then a spin-off series, and I think this book should be burned. That is a 1 star to me. Just a truly terrible book. A 2-star book is still pretty bad. There are a couple of redeeming qualities that I can normally find, and I was able to finish it, so again, it's, you know, redeemable, but still not great. So, for example, recently I rated Growing Things by Paul Tremblay 2 stars. This was a short story collection, and most of the short stories were bad, but there was a few good ones, so I couldn't rate it lower than 2 stars because there was a couple of good ones. Same with Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I thought the book was horrible, but the world building and the magic was pretty cool. So in order to try to be a little bit fair, I gave it 2 stars, but I think everything else about that book was really bad. Going off of that, Red Rising. This is by no means a bad book. In fact, a lot of people really love it. I did not like it. I thought that all of it was really off, except for one specific section towards kind of the last half of the book, this kind of competition. I'm trying not to give spoilers away. But this is an adult sci-fi series that is truly so well loved, but I thought that a lot of the components that people love about this, including the caste system and the politics, were just really wobbly, and the main character that everyone loves, I also thought was awful. So I can still recommend this book if you think you might like it. I didn't like it. So a 2-star does not mean that I don't think anyone should read it by any means. I just think that this was really not for me. I thought it was pretty bad. There was a couple of things about it that I did like, but overall I thought it was really disappointing. But is it a bad book? Not necessarily. 3 stars, like I mentioned, is super varied. For the most part, it just means it's a meh book. It is a book that I will not remember 5 years down the line. It is a book that I do not have any particular attachment towards. A great example of this would be A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab or The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, also by V.E. Schwab. I promise I'm not trying to target her. Both of these books just did not leave any kind of lasting impression on me, but they weren't bad by any means. The writing was really cool and there were some good ideas. I just didn't care at all, so for that reason I got a 3 star. On the other end of the spectrum is books that I liked, but there was still a fair amount of things that were kind of not so great about it. So Jade City, for example, for every positive, I'd found a negative when I was reading it, and I really didn't like that about it. I was really let down ultimately. So for me, when there's a positive for every negative, it kind of ends up being a 3-star read. It's very middle of the road. Similarly with The Red Market, this was a very middle of the road book. There was a lot of things I did like about it, but I don't think this is a book in terms of nonfiction that kind of changed me at all. This isn't a book that brought me anything really special. This isn't a book that I will be thinking about constantly. It is a book I would still recommend, but it is not a book that I thought was remarkable in any way. 4 stars is a really weird space for me because I think 4-star books are great books, but I only give them 4 stars because either they didn't emotionally impact me to the point where I had to give it 5 stars, or there was still a couple of things that just stopped me from giving it a full 5 stars. And okay, I don't know how many of you follow any kind of like Twitter drama, but at some point there was an author, Lauren Hoff, who had just released a book, and on her book release day, she went on Goodreads and found 2 girls who had given her 4.5 star review. And she went on a rant calling them kind of pretentious, I guess, for not giving her a full 5 stars for her book and like saying, oh, it's like 4.5. And I have a lot of issues with this because I completely understand if there is a book that you feel is really good, but there's just one thing that could have been different that stopped it from being a full 5-star read. Whether it was just something stopping you from connecting to it, whether it was a couple of lines that you found problematic, whether it was a couple issues with pacing. It is entirely possible to think that a book is near perfect, and so you choose to give it 4.5 stars. And so I think that's like a really shitty argument for giving that kind of rating. I think you are allowed to feel as though a book is near perfect and give it a 4.5 star rating if you so choose. And honestly, I do that a lot. When I just finished Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, I didn't quite connect to it immediately, but I thought everything else about this book was incredible, so I gave it 4.5 stars. That means it's a fantastic book. That means it is a great book. It is just not something that I thought was going to stick with me. I ended up changing my rating. I think it is a 5-star read now. I think it is truly incredible, but at the end of the day, I gave it 4.5 stars because there was just something stopping me from giving it a full 5 stars. I didn't quite connect to it as much as I thought I would. Similarly, Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire and The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, these are both 4-star books for me. They are phenomenal books. I will absolutely recommend them every time. They're just not favorites or books that particularly impacted me. They were entertaining, but not completely entertaining. They were emotional, but not overly so. They're just not books that had a lasting impact on me, but objectively, and as objective as I can be, I think they are incredible, really, really good books. And for a nonfiction example, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. This is a great book. It is tabbed to shit. I learned a lot from this, but I had a couple of issues with the writing and how the author was presenting some of her points, and I gave it a 4-star read. Does that mean that I didn't learn anything from this? No. Does that mean that I would not recommend this book? Absolutely not. It is great. It is fantastic. It just didn't feel like a 5-star read to me. 4-star reads seem a bit arbitrary, and I guess they kind of are, because at that point some people are like, well, why not just make 4-star books kind of like your 3 stars where they're good but not that good? But for me, 3 stars like that middle of the road, or books that were good but didn't have an impact. 4 stars like great books that didn't have an impact. And then 5-star reads. 5-star reads are pretty self-evident. They are the best of the best. They are my favorite books. They are the best written books that I've come across. Most of the time, I can't find a single thing wrong in these books, or if I do, I overlook it. My easiest example for this is Circe by Madeline Miller. I know a lot of people have issues with the pacing or the fact that it's like super character driven, and that Circe has some issues with her character. I can kind of understand, but this book just had such an emotional impact on me, and I thought the writing was incredible, and all of the Greek mythology and the atmosphere and everything was so good that to me it was an easy 5-star read. Same with The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. This book was just so emotional and funny and well plotted, and the world and the magic was just so complete that to me there was no faults. At no point did I say, oh, that kind of bothered me. I thought this book was completely incredible from start to finish. I found no faults at all. And for a nonfiction example, same with Our Prisons Obsolete by Angela Davis. I found no faults. I thought that this book was really well thought out. I thought that everything flowed really well. I learned a ton from this. And again, for this one, I just truly couldn't find any faults. And I think about this book a lot in my real life and in school and at work. And to me, that is the great joy of a really good nonfiction book, is something that really truly just sticks with you. Similarly with Kilo by Toby Muse, I read this one last year. It was one of my favorite books of the year, and it's a book that's just really stuck with me. This one I can find faults in. Obviously, it was a little bit, you could argue that's probably a little bit one-sided, or that it was maybe too narrative for some people, because it was based a lot on interviews, and it was probably exaggerated a little bit to give it a very like pulp story type feel. But at the end of the day, because it had such an impact on me, and because I thought overall it was really well written and well researched, I had not a lot of issues with it, to the point where I had to lower my rating. I thought that it was a 5-star read, and it really has stuck with me. I also occasionally don't rate books at all. So this has happened a couple of times. We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Scriver and Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Both of these books I literally could not settle on. In both of the cases, it was because I could understand the artistic inspiration behind them and the artistic liberties taken, but I did not either agree with them, or I was trying to figure out if my emotions were getting in the way of me objectively like rating them, so I just didn't rate them. And that's where we kind of get into the argument that ratings are probably pretty arbitrary. I don't think that they are necessary at all. I'm sure that they are not, and I know a lot of people have started to completely forgo the 5-star rating system. I still like it because on first glance it helps me remember what I thought of a book. It also helps viewers and people who follow my Goodreads reviews see on first glance kind of what I thought about a book. Obviously, if I give something 5 stars, people know that I absolutely loved it. If I give something 2 stars, people are gonna say, ooh, I don't think she's gonna be very happy about this one when she talks about it in a video. And I think it's just a better idea of, it's a lot easier to say, I read this book, I rated it about a 4-star, I thought it was I thought it was good, rather than saying, yeah, this book had this and this issue, but then this and this and this was good. It's just an easier way to kind of wrap up your thoughts about something. So I don't have an issue with a 5-star rating system per se, but I do agree that like at the end of the day, it is arbitrary. But again, since I have a platform where I talk about books, I think it is kind of important to go over what I consider each rating. And I know a lot of different people view things differently. I know a lot of people say that they only rate books 4 and 5 stars because they only pick up books they think they will like. And for them, 4-star means it was fine, 5-star means it's a favorite. And like whatever works for anyone is great. I am glad that everyone has figured out their own system. This one is mine, and it has been working for me, but again, you can see that there's a lot of leeway in it. So I don't know if this was helpful to you or not. I kind of liked going through this and really sitting down and thinking about my rating system and how I review books. Let me know if you've maybe developed your own system, if you've started rating books out of 10 stars, or if you've stopped rating them altogether. I'd love to hear your reasons. Otherwise, my social media is linked down below. You guys can always come talk to me there, and I will just see you guys in the next one. Bye!